Welcome everyone, my name is Keelan Morrissey, and you're watching Don't Worry. Today we're going to be discussing intrusive thoughts. So first, let's start by defining intrusive thoughts. They're pretty much exactly what they sound like they are. An intrusive thought is a thought that enters your mind that you do not want to enter your mind. So it intrudes on the natural order of what's going on in your head. And more often than not, this intrusive thought overstays its welcome and stays in your head when you really want to evict it. So, there's a range of severity to intrusive thoughts. I have heard some stories of people who have had really terrible intrusive thoughts and they just can't get them to go away and they keep thinking about like awful things. I don't know anyone personally who's been through that, at least to my knowledge, but I've heard stories online about really damaging and dark and like hurtful intrusive thoughts. But what I have experienced in my own life is a thought that comes into my mind and it's just one that I don't especially like. It's a person or a thing or a memory or an event, something that maybe I don't want to remember, something that I don't like having in my mind, occupying my headspace, but it comes along and it settles in and it's really hard to get that thought out of your head. So what I'd like to do here is make a video for anybody who's experiencing these thoughts. Or if you haven't experienced them, then hopefully this video will come in handy if that ever does happen. But I want you to know that regardless of what the thought is, whether it's this looming, lurking, terrible fear, or whether it's just some random memory from the second grade that you can't get out of your head for whatever reason, whichever one it is, you don't have to justify it, okay? Like, never feel like your problem isn't real because people wouldn't understand. I understand. And a lot of people out there, I think, do understand, but this is something that's not talked about very often. But it is completely normal, and we're going to work through it, and we're going to hopefully, by the end of this video, help you get that thought out of your head as best you can. So the main reason that intrusive thoughts are so hard to get out of your head is because any thought that you're abundantly conscious of is going to take up more energy and more of your mind and is going to be naturally harder to get rid of. For instance, if I say, don't think of a pumpkin, do not think of a pumpkin. Stop thinking about pumpkins. Do not picture a giant orange pumpkin in your head. Don't do it. Pumpkins. Now, even though you are trying, per my request, you are trying not to think of a pumpkin, it's most likely all you can think about. And then whenever you try to replace the pumpkin in your mind with something else, the pumpkin is still kind of there in the background at a bare minimum. And that's the way that intrusive thoughts are. It's something you don't want to remember, something embarrassing, something annoying, something frustrating, something irritating. It comes in your mind, and then you realize, hey, I really don't like that. I want to get rid of that thought. I want to stop thinking about it. I don't want that in my mind. But then thinking about it more actually solidifies it more. Because what was once at first just a passing thought that would have come and gone, now all of a sudden your mind has latched onto it. And you're like, man, I better stop thinking about this thing. I need to stop thinking about this thing. What can I do to stop thinking about this thing? Why is this thing here? How can I get rid of this thing? Etc. And so you're actually, in turn, by being frustrated about the thing, thinking about the thing more. So that is why I have found that the approach that seems the most rational is actually the least effective approach. So I try to logic it through in my head, and that's how I've solved a lot of problems in my mind, but this one doesn't quite work that way. So I try to say, what good is this thought doing me? Why is it here? Is it bringing me any value? And then more often than not, I come to the conclusion, okay, this is not a valuable thing to be thinking of. This is harmful. I need to get it out of my head. But then when I reach that point, it doesn't leave my head because I've actually devoted so much thinking to it that now I can't stop thinking about it. I've fed it more energy. If you view it as like a parasite, a parasitic thought, you've given it more food. It's now staying. It believes it's welcome because you've given it so much thought. And then I get frustrated more. Then I'm like, okay, I've considered logically why this thought doesn't belong. I've determined I don't want this thought here. Why is it not gone? Then I get frustrated that it's not gone. I get irritated. And so these intrusive thoughts tend to generate more anxiety. They make you anxious. They make you angry because you're like, why won't they go away? And that also feeds it. That also makes the thought even more harmful. And then when you think about that, when you think about how you can't just apply logic to this and fix it, that's even more frustrating. And guess what? That makes the thought even stronger. So it's an endless loop where the more stressed you become, the more harm is done to you. So you have to break that cycle. And that is where I have found the solution that is most successful for me. The solution is don't fight the intrusive thoughts whatsoever. Not at all. That sounds like a terrible solution, but please hear me out because this has been the most effective thing for me personally. Like I just explained in detail, thinking about it more makes it stronger. It is not the thought itself that is bad. It is not. Thoughts come in and out of our head all day long. Random stuff, gross stuff, annoying stuff, weird stuff, good stuff, bad stuff. It comes in and it goes. Our mind is just like a train station and all these different trains that come in and then they leave. And that is normal. So whenever one thought is staying longer, it's because you're holding the train there. You're keeping it there. And you keep it there by giving it more of your brain power. So the best solution is to just let it come through and pass. I also like to use the clouds analogy. I use clouds a lot, but clouds, they pass, they come, they stay, they dissipate. Thoughts should be like clouds. There shouldn't be one cloud that comes and just stays forever. That should never happen. That's not natural. You want things to come and go. But the only way that they don't just come and go is if you force them to stay. And in many cases, we do force our worst thoughts to stay by thinking them over and over and over again in our heads. So when that thought comes, when that annoying, frustrating, angering, dark, weird thought enters your head, and it's one maybe you've been having this thought every hour of the day, every day of the week, every week of the month. You've been experiencing this for a while and it's just built up all this frustration. You just have to let that go when the thought comes. Don't think about it. Don't say, shoot, there's that intrusive thought again. Don't view it as an intrusive thought. Don't view it as a nuisance. Don't even think about when is this thought going to be gone. Because as soon as you do that, you're giving that thought more power than the other thoughts in your mind. And that's the only way intrusive thoughts have power. So you have to let it come, recognize it, just as you would any other thought, any other feeling, any other random thing you're thinking, and then just let the train leave the station. Let the clouds float away. Don't hold them any longer. And this to many of you may seem like an oversimplification of your problem, but to me, it has not been. To me, it has been a very real solution to a very real issue. And you might think, Keelan, it kind of sounds like you're telling me to ignore the issue or just distract myself, which distraction in many cases with mental health tends to be just putting off the issue. That is not what is happening here. In this case, you've already done the thinking. You've been through this process of like, hey, why is this here? What does this thought mean? And you've come to the conclusion it's pointless. So you don't have to go through that again and again and again. That's just harmful. So when it comes, you just have to keep going. What I'm about to say is not a plug at all. At the end of my film right away, the two characters are discussing mental health. And one of them says, what do I do when the thoughts keep coming, when the darkness seeps in, when the depression, whatever it is? And he says, you just keep going. And in many cases, that is the best thing to do. Keep going is the simplest advice, but also some of the most powerful advice, because you have to keep going. Life has to go on. Dwelling on it will make it worse. So, once again, when you receive the thought, acknowledge it. Okay, that's a weird thing to think about, huh? And then just keep going about whatever it is you're doing. If you're about to take a drink, just keep taking your drink. Focus on how the drink tastes. Just focus on whatever you would normally focus on. Another example to help anybody who still doesn't quite understand the concept of intrusive thoughts is like manual breathing. So If I tell you to be conscious of your breathing, all of a sudden you're going to feel the breath coming in and out of your chest. You're going to feel it in your throat. You're going to feel it in your nose or your mouth, however you're inhaling or exhaling. You're suddenly going to be conscious of your breath. And that is the same thing that happens with intrusive thoughts. Suddenly you're conscious of exactly what thoughts are in your mind. And sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you just want to focus on what's happening right in front of you rather than what's happening in here. Because sometimes overthinking that is what becomes dangerous. So, to recap, my ultimate solution whenever it comes to intrusive or unwanted thoughts or feelings in your mind is just keep going. Acknowledge the thought, but completely avoid thinking about when it's going to leave, why it's there in the first place, or just exhibiting any frustration for it being there. Because while that frustration is warranted and you deserve to feel frustrated, the frustration will only hurt you more. And that is the truth. That is what I have experienced in my life. So I hope that everything I just shared will help you get through your intrusive thoughts. If it doesn't work, if you need help with this kind of thing, contact me. Maybe we can talk it through. I'm certainly not available 24/7, but I'm always happy to help a friend in need. This has been Keelan Morrissey with Don't Worry. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode, found it insightful and helpful, and I hope that everybody stays happy and healthy going forward. Please subscribe for more videos discussing mental health, as well as fun stuff like pop culture, as well as my feature films, fan films, and other original short films. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing day, and don't worry.